we are. In the Embodied Dialogue podcast, we're going to talk about the 7 F's today. And let's start the way we always start, by just settling ourselves, saying hello to our bodies, if we haven't already done that this morning or this afternoon or wherever you are in the world. Yeah, and just kind of settling into your chair. You might want to stand up. And seeing lots of really familiar faces. Oh, Mina's here, good. Yeah. So I've got quite a few of our facilitators here today. These are folks who've trained with me for over 2 or 3 years already, if not more. Some have been with me longer. Yeah, okay. So just feeling down and somewhere into the body where it feels nice to settle in a little bit. Or it may be one of those days where you just want to kind of find something in the room to bring your attention to. Yeah, just noticing where your body takes you, right? Not from up here in our heads, but just letting your body bring you into the space in whatever way, however close or with some distance you need to be from your inside self. And we're going to really honor the work today of the feminist therapists that I learned so much from way back 45 years ago, and from Gene Gendlin and his wonderful work with focusing and working with the felt sense in the body, and with beautiful Steve Porges and his polyvagal theory, and all the people that we've welcomed onto the show and that all of us know in community, right, that are really working on making this world a better place. Yeah. So I'm going to start by sharing with you a bit of a PowerPoint, because the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model and the 7 F's is really visual. I'm a very visual person. And when I met Gendlin over 30 years ago, really started getting into embodiment. And so the whole model is based on how we understand ideas and concepts from inside the body. And that makes it very unique, because so often we're developing theories and concepts from up here. And that's great. And we do that. And I do that. I've written books and I do that. I love that. But what Gendlin really taught me, and what totally made sense to me, was that we need to bring those concepts into the body. Because we can talk about them and think about them, but how do they actually live in the body? Because bodies are alive and they move all the time. So we can take a concept like neuroception, how the body monitors safety inside, but what does that actually feel like in the body? So over decades, I've really worked with students and with clients to develop a visual model of the nervous system and of felt sensing, of interoception. So I'm going to start with that. Okay, and then we're going to come back and I want to introduce you to my wonderful facilitators, and then we'll do Q&A. Okay, so this model was developed for treating trauma and addiction, but what we're discovering more and more is that you can take the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model and the 7 F's that we've created and really apply it to anything that you're interested in bringing in the body. So you can be working in business, you can be working in healthcare or education. All of these areas, the more we bring in how we understand the body, the more alive and accurate, really, the development of our theory and our practice is. So it's based on 5 theoretical frameworks. Started off with feminist theory way back 45 years ago. And of course, the wonderful work of Bessel van der Kolk and Judith Herman and lots of other people that are developing. Gabor Mate, of course, now is really coming into the limelight. And then I went hunting. I said, okay, so this is really interesting, but how do we actually bring this theory into the body? And I found Gendlin's work with the felt sense. So Gendlin, he started this work way back in the 1960s or 70s. And I've really studied under him for decades, and what an incredible opportunity that was. Then I found interpersonal neurobiology. Those of you who haven't heard about it, wonderful work with Dan Siegel and attachment theory, Bonnie Badenoch's work. And that was where I met Steve Porges' work back in 2012 and started reading a little bit about polyvagal theory. Then I went searching for, in this model, this new depathologizing model, we don't talk about disorders and pathologizing models of addiction. We look at bringing in neuroplasticity and the learning model of addiction. So Mark Lewis's wonderful work, The Biology of Desire. And then, of course, polyvagal theory. And Steve, I met personally in 2018 at the United States Association of Body Psychotherapies, amazing group, also in Europe. You should check them out if you don't know them. And there I had a chance to really talk with Steve Porges about the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model and the way of understanding through the 7Fs. So this model for me is very important to state that we are really working with an anti-oppressive lens. We're looking at systems of oppression and how they impact the body and the nervous system and our capacity to feel into the felt sense, right? So we're looking at systems of racism and white supremacy, of misogyny, poverty is a huge one, hypermasculinity, and heteronormativity. We want to really bring in and embrace these different paradigms and ways of understanding what it is to be human and to be connected or disconnected from each other. So in this model, we're shifting the paradigm. We're saying, oh, all these ways that bodies have of responding to maladaptive environments are actually adaptive responses in a body that feels under threat. So it's the opposite of what we're taught. These responses in the body are not maladaptive. They're adaptive features of a really scared body inside. So we're shifting into really honoring the wisdom of the body. And that is what the field of somatics is all about. So here's our 7Fs. This, as I said, it was created by a lot of us over many, many years. And what was always so interesting is when we went down into the body, this beautiful flock place that we call the ventral branch of the vagus nerve. This is the place where we feel safe and connected. It lives in the body above the diaphragm and comes right up through the face, through the social engagement system. When we feel safe, we give these beautiful cues of safety to each other through smile, through a nice way of connecting through eye contact. And there are other ways of doing that as well, that we bring in, we lean into each other, we come closer. So we made this yellow because this is where most people went when they were describing the feeling and the felt sense of safety in the body. And then the other main branch of the nervous system, the sympathetic branch, this came from this image of being tightly balled up in like a ball of wool that's all connected and disconnected from each other. And that image that somebody came up with really just felt right for us to use as a kind of intense sympathetic flight-fight response. Then we have the dorsal fold response, we call it, where we're folding down into the body. This is the branch of the nervous system that Steve Porges named for us, the dissociative branch of the nervous system, right? This was a huge part of the contribution that he has given to our field. And then we have all these blended states. And so we're going to go to the next slide. Wait a second here. Go back here. So this slide, this is the newest one we've come up with. This one is, here we're moving in these different states in the nervous system. Thank you, Robert, who's clapping. But we also have these blended states that are blended between different branches of the nervous system. So in a fun, fired up state, we're in a blending of the safety of ventral with the sympathetic energy of flight fight. And one kind of monitors and co-regulates with the other so that we're able to stay safe, but we're also feeling a little bit of that adrenaline or cortisol that's keeping us on track. So this is where I am right now because I'm here and I feel safe in our community. But I'm also a little fired up because I'm sharing with you something that means a lot to me. Over here, we have this beautiful blending of the safety of flock and the safety of stillness in fold. So this dorsal branch of the vagus can also be a beautiful, safe place to be. This is where our practices in focusing live, spiritual practices, where it feels safe to be still in the body, as Steve Porges would say. Sorry, this thing is so sensitive. Here we have the blending of fixate. We call this the addictive place of freeze and fawn, where we're oscillating in addiction through sympathetic flight fight and then into freeze and then shutting down into dorsal. And this is how we understand addictions through a polyvagal lens, that there are ways of shifting these states back and forth in order to survive when we don't feel safe. And here we have the last state that we've just recently added. We've called it favoring others for survival. And in this state, this is what Steve calls appeasement. So here we have a blending of sympathetic and dorsal into that freeze state, but also, as you can see, it comes down and meets ventral in flock, because there is an awareness when we are serving others for survival that we have to say the right thing, do the right thing to avoid threat. So that's our model. And then here we have the clinician model. So the thing that I tried to do here, as well as bringing it into embodiment, is to make it both simple and complex. So we have a simple model that kids actually love in the 7Fs. We also have a more complex model where I've brought in more of the language of polyvagal theory. And here we see this trauma feedback loop up here, the top half of the model. This is where we live in this traumatized kind of threat state. And down here is the empowerment feedback loop. These are the nervous system states that have enough safety. And this is where the full felt sense of experience lives. And along the side here, this is Gendlin's experiencing scale, 1 to 7. This is a really wonderful tool that we use in the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model community of assessing how deeply down we are and the person that we're working with is in terms of their capacity to feel into an integrated full state of felt sense. So Gendlin created these 6 steps of focusing, and this is what we use to help people come down into the body. And this, of course, is a very gentle process that happens because we have to take a lot of care in inviting people to come down. And so here's where Steve says this really nice quote that brings these things together. Feelings of safety are not equivalent to objective measurements of safety, which could pragmatically be defined as the removal of threat. Feeling safe is more akin to the felt sense described by Eugene Gendlin. Although Gendlin, as a philosopher and psychologist, was not physiologically oriented, he described this felt sense or felt shift as not just a mental experience, but also a physical one. And this is what I put together in having trained in focusing and then meeting polyvagal theory. That the felt shift that Gendlin talked about in the process that we come to when we're focusing, particularly with a partner, we're coming down inside the body. We're being with what is uncomfortable in the body. And as we do that, this discomfort starts to open like a flower. And that opening is a shift we call in the focusing world a felt shift. In the polyvagal world, we call this a shift in autonomic state. And what I realized, and I ran by Steve Porges, was I think this felt shift is a shift into ventral. And he said, yeah, absolutely. And that just made so much sense for me. So that's what the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model is. And we use body cards because, again, we're trying to really bring in this process of understanding the body and somatics and the theory that we're developing through an embodied process. So the body cards really show us, they reveal to us often what we wouldn't think of if we just stayed in our head to make a body card. And so here we have this heaviness of the dorsal grief this person is experiencing about her work with climate change. And then you see this wonderful yellows and oranges and this aliveness of the ventral kind of fired up, fun part of her felt sense that she starts to move into as she feels the shift into this resource of good energy. And again, this body card that shows us the shift between the dorsal sympathetic state of freeze in the body. And you notice how this person is experiencing this split in the body from this dorsal blue black feeling and the kind of yellow reddy feeling of sympathetic. And then through her focusing partnership, listening to the body, inviting grounded felt sense feeling into the body and shifting into this beautiful flock state. This is the experiencing scale that we use where we've integrated the autonomic nervous system into this. This is Gendlin's work and research. So we've got these two body processes, interoception and neuroception, that we're working with in the body. This is what the core of what we teach to people. And this is one way of kind of visualizing these embodied processes. It's a bi-directional feedback loop. This is how bodies work. They work in bi-directional feedback loops. Everything is connected to everything else, rather than a kind of top-down linear model, which makes it very difficult to appreciate these feedback loops. So we've got our two skills that we teach to clients and we use ourselves. We're recognizing and retuning autonomic state, partly through the process of using the 6 steps of focusing and lots of other ways that we do that to socially engage and to work through trauma. A big part of this model is learning how to titrate the nervous system. We use often focusing, so we're inside the body. We're finding the place that's uncomfortable and supporting it in the body with the place in the body that feels grounded. Gendlin would always say, don't go to the uncomfortable places without the help. It's his kind of way of talking about titration. So we have ways of working with this, asking into the felt sense in very skillful ways how to regulate the nervous system and activate the felt sense of ventral energy. And we teach people how to trace where they are in their body. You see here that through a polyvagal lens, addictions function as these state regulation strategies that are survival strategies in the autonomic nervous system. Addiction is a very normalized response that happens in the nervous system as a way of being able to survive. And then lastly, we use the 4-circle harm reduction practice as a way of helping people map out where they are in their body and where they need to go in order to be able to access more grounding, more ventral energy. And this is just an example of a harm reduction roadmap from a client that I worked with, who in that inner circle is working on letting go of some self-harming, but also ways of surviving adaptations. The second ring are the triggers in that person's life that activate the use of addictions. The third ring are the beautiful grounding ventral practices that we help our clients to build over time. And the fourth circle that actually Robert Ragucci, who's here with us as one of the facilitators, suggested that we add, and I thought this is so right. We work in community together in deepening the practices. And so we're deepening down here in this fourth circle into the more spiritual practices that really nurture and cultivate ventral energy. This is the kind of thing that takes sometimes several years to build with a client. So we're treating trauma and addiction directly through the nervous system and the activation of felt sensing. And so then we have our kind of toolkit for how we work with people. We help them through recognizing where they are in their nervous system through the 7Fs. We're working with focusing as a way of bringing introception deeper into the body. And then together, people work often in partnerships. We call these focusing accountability partnerships, and creating those four circles as a roadmap for how to live a good life. I also created an embodied assessment and treatment tool. It's a chapter in a new book that just came out, Somatic Oriented Therapies. Beautiful book. There's, I don't know, 40 chapters or something of so many folks in the field that have contributed to somatics, the world of somatics. So here we have a way of really being able to assess what's happening somatically for our clients. And the new book I'm working on is going to be about couples. So bringing the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model and the dialogue with Imago into working with couples. And this is my first book and my second book, where we're really bringing these practices as a kind of, it's like a kind of guide on how to work with the model. So this is a call to action, this work. It's if there was ever a time, I think, certainly since I've been in the field over 45 years, it's now where we need to be bold. We need to get out there and really help people to work with this beautiful vagus nerve, to work with how can we all create a safe enough space to be able to get along in the world. We're in deep trouble. And working with polyvagal theory and with felt sense is such a powerful way to be able to do that. And it makes this work just joyous. It makes it a wonderful offering to people when they realize I'm not sick and I'm not bad. My body's just doing what it needs to do in order to get me through the day. And these are the things that we can do to really learn about what bodies need in order to feel safe enough in the world and to co-regulate with each other. So that's my thing. And I'm going to come back to our group. And now, Lisa, can you spotlight our facilitators? There's Ragna and Elizabeth. Ranya's here from Germany. Elizabeth's here from outside Boston, right, Elizabeth?
New Hampshire, yeah.
Yeah. And Jacqui is here from Miami. And Robert is here from California. And Meredith, where are you now? I can't remember.
Chicago, Illinois.
Chicago. All right. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And Mina? Mina's here. Lisa, can you bring her up?
She's up.
There we go. Hello, Mina from New York City.
And there's Sue.
And where's Sue? Oh, great. Sue, come. Do you want to come? Sue's here from Norwich. Thank you, Sue, for coming.
I was just an observer.
Oh, well, you can just observe if you want, but you can be here and observe if you want. You joined me last week. Well, guys, let's help people to understand a little bit more about how we are bringing FSPM into the work that we're doing. Who would like to start?
I'm sorry. I am Patricia from Argentina.
Oh, hello, Patricia.
Hello.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Jacqui, we were just connecting a little bit briefly about the work that you're doing. Maybe you could start us off by sharing, because I think it's, you know, a lot of folks are therapists that are here, psychotherapists and coaches. You actually came at the model from speech pathology, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a speech language pathologist for 12 years now. And so aside from the personal transformation that I received through the model, it's been really great to now integrate it with children as a somatic speech therapist, I guess, if you will. It's just a beautiful languaging to become aware of my regulation, like because of the 7 Fs of like, where am I in my nervous system to be able to be with and co-regulate with the children that are coming to me that are mostly like diagnosed with ODD, right? Like oppositional defiance disorder, but it's not that, right? We know that it's not that. So it's just a beautiful opportunity to now say, okay, this is actually an autonomic response, and just taking away that label and just honoring the body and learning strategies to regulate based on their sensory profile, based on their somatic profile, through the listening therapies, even like the safe and sound protocol.
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a beautiful marriage. And the kids are getting it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love when you described, you know, step one in focusing, we call clearing space, right? Step one is a mindfulness practice. When we move into step two, it loses that mindfulness quality, I think, and goes into like, what's the problem? But I loved how you described using the sand tray in
Yeah.
clearing space with kids. Can you say a little bit about that?
I love the sand tray. And it's like, I'm in my garage. So my husband is like, do you really need the sand? It's like a beach in here. But I'm like, yes, I need the sand, because it's so beautiful for them to actually make the space physically in the sand tray. We talk about how big we need to make it, so they are noticing how big the feeling is. And then the sensation with the body cards, just giving them the vocabulary, just as if they were to learn how to say dog. And they're able to learn neuroception, interoception. They're able to learn sensation words. And when Jan was talking about Jen Lynn's experiencing scale, it's so beautiful to see where they are in the experiencing scale. Like once they're drawing their body card, usually it starts off as a gingerbread man. We know they're like in 1 and 2, but then now we're getting like meaningful drawings and in where is it in your body, and they're putting it where it is. We're adding, that safety component. We're expanding to be with this discomfort.
Beautiful.
And yeah, it's beautiful.
Such exciting work, and especially with young people, right? So important. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Jacqui. And Robert and Elizabeth, would you guys share, because I know you've been with me for a long time, even before my courses at Polyvagal Institute. You guys have been developing a focusing partnership. So everybody that trains with me and through the PVI, we work in focusing partnerships. And you've been together now for a while and really bringing in the accountability partnerships with the 4 circles. Can you say a little bit about that?
I'll let Elizabeth go first.
Okay. Well, I met Robert in your groups called Shifting Bad Habits, which was before the certification course. And I've been a therapist for 45 years. Now I'm a coach, nervous system coach. But I came to Jan to work on my food addiction, or she would say my eating adaptation. And
well, food addiction's okay too. We just want to get out of the word disorder and into adaptation, as you say, Elizabeth.
Okay. I had a lot of years of 12-step recovery, and I was still struggling. And so I was really excited about Jan's work. And at some point, I had my focusing partnerships, but I asked Robert if he would like to be an accountability partner. And I will let Robert talk more about it, but we've done a lot of work with the 7 Fs and the 4 circles. And what I would say about where I am right now in the 4 circles is I'm working on fixate. And I'm thinking of the first circle as fixate. And I heard Jan say recently that, with focus, and we want to be able to just ultimately just be living it rather than in my step 1, step 2, step. So I'm working on doing that when I have food urges and realize I'm in fixate. And I think about even just a mindfulness moment of step 1, or even a visualization of some sort while I'm going through my day, rather than waiting to need to sit down, meditate, do a focusing practice, have a focusing partner. I'm trying to integrate that, and I feel like it's really been so hugely helpful. And I make those commitments to Robert for accountability. And for many months, I would send Robert on a daily basis, this is what I'm doing for first circle, second circle, third circle, fourth circle. So, and then I'll let Robert had a beautiful idea about how to integrate your grounding practice with the 7 Fs. So I will pass it over to you, Robert.
Well, what we have done, we listened to your Felt Sense Polyvagal Model grounding exercise. Quite literally, we listened to the tapes that are available on YouTube. But after we've gone through the 7 Fs, we actually pause the tape and we put up the 7 F chart and we track. We take turns tracking. Where am I right now? And actually there's layers to it. So this is I'm mainly here right now, but there's this part I can always touch dorsal. He's always right here in my cheek. Or I can touch anger. He's always right here in my jaw. Or there's this wonderful open-heartedness that can bring tears to my eyes. And these parts are like, they come and go, but we can reach out to them. And then we continue the tape, and then we get a felt sense of a moment of connection. And we take the time to actually draw a body card, and then we share the body cards with each other. So this is kind of the evolution that's been going on, and it ebbs and flows. There are times when we get to meet 4 times a week, and there are weeks in which if we're lucky to get to 1. So we have been working at this, I think it's over 2 years now, 2 years, 3 months. And really want to say there's a depth of trust and intimacy and connection that grows. We are at least as intimate in some ways with each other as we are with our partners. Yeah, so
Beautiful.
this is a gift that just keeps on giving.
And a community that keeps on giving, right?
It's true.
It's really true. Yeah.
One of the great joys is getting to, I don't know, I maybe have 6 focusing partners. And again, every combination is quite unique.
Yeah.
What comes forth in that connection with that person. Again,
it's extraordinary what comes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert and Elizabeth. Anybody want to share? Ragna, you're up to some fun things and bringing FSPM into Germany.
Yes, I am. I'm so excited and so glad that I already did a little training in German this past half year, because it took a while to get the German vocabulary down. The vocabulary is very strict and straight in German, right? It's set. I can't do my own translations. It's like I have to look at the books. So I'm glad.
Well, Jenlin, I guess the little focusing book that Jenlin wrote back in 1978 was translated into German years ago.
Yes, it's here for a long time.
Yeah.
Been around. And,
so your background is you're a naturopath, right?
Yes, I'm a naturopath. And I work mainly with women that have neuroplastic pain or illness anxiety. So basically a nervous system is giving somatic symptoms and fears around those symptoms. And I myself was suffering from chronic pelvic pain for 25 years. And I would say that the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model made it available for me to actually have that treatment that I needed really come in, because I worked with somebody before that worked with neuroplastic pain and it didn't land. And that safety in my body, that is the main thing with my clients. They have no good relationship with their body. They meet fear, they meet pain, and whoever had chronic pain knows that it just brings the nervous system up, up, up into a place that is just really hard to stay regulated in.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of spoons away a day to manage that. And so my work with the women that I do is really a very gentle, very slow one. There's a lot of clearing space and not entering the body.
Yeah,
A lot of clearing
absolutely.
space backwards.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of just finding the positive in the body and finding that one fingernail that feels good that day.
At the
And
tip of the
on
nose.
the tip of the nose, or just,
Yeah. The earlobe.
yes, the earlobe is a good one, or the tips of the hair. I had that quite a lot
Ah,
too. Just like no
yeah.
sensation. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Well, I'm grateful to you for bringing the model into German. And next year we're launching the model, the course, actually, the certificate course with PVI, with Germany and Poland and France and maybe lots of other countries. So it's very exciting to be able to spread the word like that. Thanks, Ragna. I'm wondering if there are some questions, and other folks here in the panel can also respond to the questions as well. Lisa, is there, Mina, I know, works in education, and Meredith works a lot in addiction, two very important areas to bring this work into.
I don't have any questions coming in the Q&A, but I know Mina had something that she
Okay.
was going to get to. I think.
Great. Yeah, please share, Mina.
Yeah, so by the way, that new presentation is dynamite.
Thank you.
It really rocks. I love the animation.
I know, we just made that slide.
That adds so much.
I know, because bodies move.
Exactly. And there is, things are shifting too.
All the time.
All the time.
I
But we
must
can't
admit,
just.
I must admit, it made me a little seasick. There's just a little bit too much motion going.
I got to get better at that part of it.
Maybe
Robert,
just one blended state at a time, not all of them.
I'm working on it, Robert.
Robert, are you interrupting me again?
Again, I can't, it's so impulsive.
It's okay. I trigger that in you.
Well, you want to take responsibility for my baby? You go right for it.
But anyway, so I am working on bringing this model into education, not just in my private practice, but education, schools, particularly preschool. And I would love, love, love to work with Jacqui.
Yes, I connected you guys. So please do that. One of the things we do in our community is really encourage people to connect with each other, and to challenge us, and to come up with new ideas. And we love that, right? So yeah.
So I'm just going to talk about one challenge, and I'm happy to talk about more. As you know, Jan, I always have so much to say.
I know. I want to get Meredith in here too, though.
Exactly.
And Sue.
Well, Sue's observing.
Okay.
As she wishes.
Yeah.
So bringing it in, though, presents challenges.
Yeah.
Big challenges. And one of them is language, right? And kind of understanding what are you talking about, and because it's about feeling in your body and your mind. And the children that I work with, 3 to 5-year-olds, they don't necessarily know what's in their body. They're just discovering their body, and they have all kinds of physical and language delays. And so the idea that I had just by watching your presentation is that I'm just going to introduce some of the visuals. Many children are very visual.
Yeah, they'll love it.
They love it, but I'm going to introduce them as games
Mm-hmm.
with words written under it. For example, a matching game.
Mm-hmm.
And so they start out by matching these, you know, these icons.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, we'll go deeper and deeper and deeper into the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
That way, the teachers are also going to be on board and get curious and observe.
Yes.
So that's one technique strategy that I have.
Beautiful.
In addition to training teachers, which I'm doing.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wonderful. And again, connect with Jacqui because she's into the same thing. This is what she's doing right now too. And also, you know, writing a book. So yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Mina. And Meredith, you're working now at an addiction treatment center, is that right?
No, I
Oh, in
actually,
the schools.
well, I'm in private practice. I'm a school social worker. So,
Yeah.
you know, I have had this idea similar to you, similar to there's a IFS, you know, the self-leadership collaborative that goes into schools, and the nervous system is so, I think, beautifully,
Yeah.
like, oops, they would be so amazing, just to bring this kind of the nervous system and helping teachers realize, but through experience and through watching the students, and other teachers, and as their lives improve, as mine did, hopefully, just the idea that there is going to be language, and there is going to be the, you know, the connection. That piece is so important, and in schools especially, where still I'm hearing horror stories of mail just got here. My dog is barking. Sorry. Which made me lose my place. But you know, for teachers to embody it and for kids to learn from them, I love just that kind of modeling and bringing it into schools.
Mm-hmm.
I am in private practice for and work as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
and a therapist, largely with addiction and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, all of my clients have experienced trauma, and I I said I was never going to work with trauma, never, out of fear. And you know, I didn't want to harm anyone, and I was just like, eh. Um, but naturally, as I have been on my own healing journey, which the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model has been the most drastic healing tool and therapy that I can possibly imagine. And it really, there's so much.
What was it about that experience, Meredith, so you were in the certificate course and experienced a focusing partnership along with learning the model, but there was something in that experience that you've shared with me that was really powerful for you. What do you know? Can you get a sense of what that is?
Yeah. I thought that I knew and understood somatic work. And when you spoke in that cohort, I for some reason, when the invitation came to close my eyes and go into my body, I felt like I couldn't do it. And that was shocking to me because I have been, you know, a therapist since 2008, and a licensed clinical social worker since 2013, I think. And I just, that the gentle invitation was amazing, but then the titration and the focusing partnership is what really brought together, I think, a lot of things that I just really hadn't experienced. I thought I had, but I really
It's
hadn't.
going deeper, right, into
Going
the
deeper.
body.
And thanks to Ragna, who was willing to just randomly do a focusing session with me, like, and I knew it was something that I had to learn more about. And then partnership, it's learning where, you know, someone who was reflecting back to me to notice where I was avoiding something or moving it to something external instead of sticking with what was going on. She did an amazing job, a gentle awareness, just that I really learned a lot about my defenses. And I mean, that's made a huge difference, and I have a long way to go. And I think focusing the reinforcement in the partnership, the compassion, the non-shaming, which right now for me is a very big deal. As someone in recovery, I am just noticing a huge amount of shame in just general these days that I feel
Yes.
is
Yeah.
even worse than it has been in the past.
Well, sometimes it intensifies as we're with it, right?
That's it.
So, but in that focusing partnership, we're not just buddying up and talking about concepts. People in that first course, you're going down into your own embodied experience, and you're being followed beautifully and compassionately by your partner.
Who is
And as the partner in step 4, resonates and then asks into it and it opens. And this was what Gendlin discovered, right? Is that bodies know how to heal if basically we stay out of the way and give them what they need.
Yes.
They will open like a plant, because he would say, we're at least plants.
We are.
I love that.
Yeah.
We think in this top-down world, we think of the body as a computer, or the brain as a computer, and the body's just this thing that lugs around the brain. This is terrible. No wonder we're in such trouble in the world.
And I have always imagined my head as being a balloon floating way up there, and I'm holding on to the string. That's literally how I experienced 40 years of my life.
Yes, of course. Of course you did, because you needed that level of distance to keep you safe.
I did. And that is also why I am an addict in recovery.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for sharing. One of the things I wanted to share too with everyone is I'm doing this series for the Friendly Circle Berlin, which is just a wonderful group that I've connected with, called Somatic Mondays. And next Monday, I'm bringing in Ivor, who is in my certificate. Well, he's moving into the supervision group, is training from Iceland. And we're going to do a demo of what focusing looks like and the Felt Sense Polyvagal Model looks like in a session. And then talk about focusing partnerships. So how to experience the work for ourselves inside ourselves, because that's where it all starts, right? If we haven't got connection to our own bodies, we are not going to be able to bring our people down into theirs. It's just impossible, because they won't feel the safety. And so it really is, as Gendlin said, the primacy of human presence, of us working on ourselves, which is what we are all really about, right? And that's coming more and more into the field of therapy, which is really wonderful for me to see, having been in this work for 45 years, that finally we are really starting to make inroads in to people realizing that what I've always thought, which is you have no business doing this work until you've done your own. You just don't know what you're doing otherwise. It's okay if you're doing CBT, and there's nothing wrong with CBT if you're bringing in the body to be with cognition, right? Marlene says it brought me to tears for sharing. Wonderful. Yeah, this work is really deep. It's really deep. And the titration is so wonderful. I think that's the most important skill, regardless of whether you are or call yourself a therapist or a coach. I mean, who knows the difference anymore these days? We talk about the differences, but it's a really interesting time to be part of this field. Very much more interesting than it was in the beginning. When, remember Elizabeth, where there was like a little trauma world over here, and then there was therapy. And now we're moving more and more into bringing the body in, like Jenlyn would talk about, you know, way back in the 1970s and 80s. So it's a good thing. I think the momentum is really good and important. And really, you know, lots of leaders in the field are saying, you know, like I heard Frank Anderson say the other day, you got to be in your body. You got to be there. And I love the way he's actually sharing his own journey. And I just finished reading his memoir, and like, wow. So being able to share that journey and show up and say, I survived that. And this is part of how I did it and what helped me is just, I think, so wonderful to see. Yeah. We've got a long way to go still, but it's definitely, there's a momentum building. And the work is deep, and it can be scary for people because we're touching into a place in the body that carries those deep, deep wounds. The thing is, we don't go hunting for them, right? We made that mistake 40 years ago. We don't do that anymore, but they're there. And those wounds want to be heard and held. And that happens through triggers. And so our job is to find ways to help people be with all of that, as long as we have enough resourcing of a grounded felt sense. And actually, little kids know very well what a felt sense is, unless they've been so damaged they've lost it very early on. They know what a felt sense is in their body. It's much harder to teach the teachers. I did that work years ago in the classrooms. Very difficult, very challenging. And even more so now because teachers, I mean, what they're being handed to work with. Yeah. So let's take a breather. And how's everybody doing? How does this work land for you in your body? How do you imagine bringing it into your office, your relationship with your partner, your role as a parent or a teacher, in your friendships? I mean, once you connect inside there like that, there's no real going back, right? You found that place. And then we work really hard through our practices, through developing those neural pathways to help people come back in there. And that's the really good news. And that's the paradigm shift. Because the more you walk down those neural pathways, the more you move out of the state of addiction and the trauma feedback circle, the more you're moving into that empowerment feedback loop. And I can tell you, people in as clients and then in the Friendly Circle Berlin are so on fire about understanding addiction in this new way, because it is so, it's the most powerful way to free people from shame, is to say, this is just what your body does in order to survive. It's instinctive. Yeah. And remembering that you cannot live in one of those dysregulated states forever. Can't live in sympathetic because your heart's beating like crazy. And you can't just sustain living in dorsal when your heart rate drops. You could die in either of those states. So of course you are going to have ways of shifting back and forth. And what are those ways? How do you soothe yourself? And our definition of addiction, it helps you in the short term. It hurts you in the long term, and you can't stop doing it. You might stop for a while, but if you're stressed out again and you go back to those ways that are hurting you, you've got a problem, right? So there, we don't argue, we don't get into power struggles with people. We just say, well, let's look at it like this. And then we work with the body, because addictions don't happen when you feel safe and you're having a great ventral time in the world. Who's ever heard of that? You don't need them. They happen when we don't feel safe. And then we have to go to something external to regulate ourselves. So when we know that, and then we can say, oh, well, you can build these new neural pathways. Then you don't have to live, because a lot of people, they stop the addictive behavior, but they live in sympathetic, terrified, like the white knuckling thing. It's going to happen again. And when I would work with folks like that, as soon as we started to go into the body, they would feel it, the constriction. And I thought, well, that's not good, because you can't stay there forever. So of course they're going to relapse. Of course they are, because they are going to have to go back to something that brings in dorsal relief. So it's so vitally important to work with the nervous system. And then, of course, we're working with felt sense, because as soon as we start moving into that beautiful ventral energy, that beautiful fullness of the felt sense opens. And that's what is healing for people. Yeah. Anybody want to say something before we round it off?
Hey, I have a comment.
Yeah.
And it's over. It happened long enough ago that I'm comfortable speaking about it, but I was starting to feel like a little bit slippery, and I went someplace that could offer treatment before I got into slid far. And I was actually turned away. And this is an agency that I knew, and so there's a lot of feelings around it. But the doctor did not ask me questions before telling me I was inappropriate. I don't know what they could have thought I was doing, because obviously I'm not looking for a treatment facility for fun, folks, And then the next day I went somewhere else and was greeted with a hug and absolutely no shame. And if I were not me, I had trouble getting the first place to call me back even. If I were not me, I could see myself, if I were back to drugs on the street even, someone could die in the meantime while they're not getting it. So the personal, I think the informed, trauma and addiction informed from the people, hearing their voices, our voices, is really vital, because often the addict's voice is not heard. They don't.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. I really mean that. That's what heals the shame, right? And more I am so, I don't know, what's that word? Joyous, and appreciate people coming together like this, and really sharing things that feel vulnerable as a way of changing the world. And I shared things in both of my books, particularly in my first book. I thought about it a lot, because then it becomes this thing where people know these things about you and you don't know them, which is another interesting kind of sharing. But all of it is so important in terms of really, I think, being bold and coming forward. And the only way we can do that is to do it together. It's to co-regulate with each other together, like we're doing right now, right here. So I so appreciate all of you being here with us live. I know many people signed up as well, and many people will watch this, because there's a growing interest in the 7Fs, which delights me, because the more we can bring embodiment and the creating of theory into the body. Jenlin called this thinking at the edge, where you take the concept and you ask it into the body. How does my body feel about neuroception? What does that feel like in the body? So thank you again for coming, and the facilitators for giving your time to share with people our beautiful community and my new website, which I hope everybody will check out and join us. We have a community there. We've got a blog there. I'm all about building and making those connections, and that's how we will change the world. So thank you very much for coming. And if you want to unmute and say goodbye to everybody, that would be so great to hear everybody's voice. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
See you soon.
See you soon. See you Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Bye. Bye, everyone.